Okay. How's it going?
Yes, sir. Good, man.
What about our board?
That's what I hope.
Do you think we're gonna be contested?
This meeting of the Starkville Board of Aldermen will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Alderman Vaughn would like to open us in a word of prayer, and we will observe a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a great God, the God of the universe, the God that made the heaven and earth and the fullness thereof, the God that separated the water from the land, filled the sea with fish and all other living creatures. God that said, let there be light, and there was light. Father God, again, here's a few your handmaid servants. Father God, we can come again before you. We're not coming for no shape, form, or fashion, nor outside show to the world. We're coming, Father God, this is the will of yours, that you will bless us. You will bless this mayor, this board, and the department heads. Father God, whatever task that you put before us, God, that we will do it decently in order. But whatever we do, Father God, we will do it to glorify you. Father, we thank you so much for being who you are and what you are. We ask you to please forgive us of all our sins, that are known and unknown, seen and unseen. Praying that you will order our steps. We pray, Father God, that we will keep in our hearts what 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 14 says, if my people that are called by thy name will humble themselves and seek thy face and kneel down and pray, then they will hear from heaven. Then I will heal their land. Bless us, Father God. Bless us with your righteousness. Bless us with your love. We thank you. Teach us to love one another the way you loved us in spite of our difficulty and misunderstanding. Father God, that when we do finish these days, that we can look back over our life and say, well done, well done. Thank you so much for all that you have done and all that you're doing. Thank you for allowing this storm to go over with no fatalities. Lord, we thank you so much. We know that you is a good God. We know that you is a God that don't make no mistake. We know that you is a God that sit high and look low. We know that you is a God, whatever we ask in your name and just believe, we know that you will fulfill our requests. We call upon you now and again to fill this faith with your spirit. Please, Jesus, if it's thy will, use us. Use us in your way, not our way. And we'll be very careful to give you all the thanks, the honor, the glory, and the praise because of who you are and where you are. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, you have before you a copy of the written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written?
Mayor, I move the agenda be approved as presented in our board packet.
Motion has been made by Alderman Perkins to approve of the agenda as presented in the packet. Alderman Perkins, that's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Perkins, you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The first matter you have before you for consideration is the minutes from September 2nd, 2014. Discussion.
I move.
Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of the minutes from September 2nd, 2014 as presented and as reviewed by the city attorney. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Alderman Perkins.
Yes, sir. Mr. Attorney, everything looks well. Meet your approval.
I made some corrections and just passed them inward to the city clerk.
Okay, and that's for both sets?
Correct.
Okay.
No, the first set,
Okay, but-
September 2nd.
Right, but when we get to the other set, did you make any correction on that set?
No, they're clean.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Next matter you have before you is the minutes from September 16th, 2014. Discussion. Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve of the September 16, 2014 minutes of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen as presented and as reviewed by the city attorney. Alderman Little, is that your motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. That will take us to announcements and comments by the mayor and members of the board. I have the introduction of 3 new employees this evening. First, I'd like to introduce Carlton Patrick. And Mr. Patrick has joined the department as a driver. Carlton is originally from Starkville and is a Starkville High School graduate. Before joining the city of Starkville, Carlton worked for the Starkville Public School System as a bus driver. He is the son of Maggie Patrick. During his spare time, he enjoys football. He and his family attend Second Baptist Church. Please join me in welcoming Carlton Patrick to the city of Starkville. I'd now like to introduce Calvin Williams. Calvin is also a new sanitation driver. Calvin is from Starkville and is a graduate of Starkville High School. After high school, he attended East Mississippi Community College, where he studied truck driving. Calvin previously worked for Coca-Cola Bottling Company of Northeast Mississippi in their warehouse. He is the proud parent of 1 son, Collie. During his spare time, Calvin enjoys working, spending time with his family and his dog, Cotton. He and his family attend Peters Rock Temple Church of God in Christ in Starkville. Please join me in welcoming Calvin Williams. Finally, I'd like to recognize Courtney Ross. Courtney has joined the department as an equipment operator at the landfill. Courtney is from West Point and is a graduate of West Point High School. Before joining the city of Starkville, Courtney worked for A&H Electric, installing HVAC systems for businesses and residents. Courtney is the son of Gloria Ross and Anthony O'Neill. When Courtney isn't busy working, he enjoys fishing and hunting and spending time with his daughter, Kristen. He and his family attend Third Mount Olive Baptist Church in West Point. Please join me in welcoming Courtney Ross. And that concludes my announcements for this evening. Are there any announcements by the members of the board? Alderman Wynn.
Good evening, everyone. Residents of the city of Starkville, you all may have received a notice such as this from Sanitation and Environmental Services in your door as a courtesy reminder regarding the debris. I'm asking that you excuse us, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. This is unacceptable. Our residents here are recovering from a storm. They should not receive one of these in their door. Prior to my coming in here, Alderman Maynard informed me that a man told him that he removed a tree that was actually in the street and cut it up and put it in his yard, and he received one of these. This is not the way that we should do business. Again, I'm asking you, again, I apologize, and on behalf of the mayor, our CAO, and my fellow board members, I apologize to you if you received this. Please disregard it. Okay.
Are there further comments from the members of the board? Alderman Ball.
If I'm not mistaken, that's our policy and our procedure that we always have followed in the previous. I'm thinking that's our procedure. So if that's the procedure, she know no difference to. But I do want to say something. On Friday night at 5:30, we will be doing remembrance of Coach Craig, that all the play ball of Coach Craig, had him diligence, Coach Craig. On Friday night at 5:30, we will be memorizing him at 5:30 on the baseball field. And Craig was the head coach from Starkville High from 1967 to 1976, and he had 5 Little 10 championships. And so anyone that played with Craig or had an affiliation with Coach Craig, I'd be greatly appreciated if you show up.
Further comments from the members of the board? Alderman Carter.
My comment was also going to be related to the storm. We'll talk about that, and I know there's way I understood, maybe we don't have the capacity to pick up some of those 2,000-pound trunks. I know we have an 8-inch radius diameter. You and I spoke about that, and we'll talk about all this tonight. But before we get there, I just want to say thank you to Calvin and his crew. They've done good work. I didn't realize until I was talking to him. I was more aware of the situation around the middle of town, Jackson, and all that. But I didn't know it was. I don't think we had a tornado touch down, but I didn't realize it was as much as it is. And he has been going wide open, and I know everybody's calling, and he's doing as good as he can. So I do want to really just congratulate that crew. They've been out there and they've been going at it, and they're well deserving of some kind of accolade, and just appreciate the job that they've done so far.
Any further comments by the members of the board? Alderman Walker.
I'd like to agree with what Alderman Carver had to say, and I'd also like to say thank you for all the diligent, hard work that from all the first responders and Starkville Electric for working in a very tough situation. We had, I think the estimate I saw was about half the population was without power at one point. Was it more than that? More than that. And I know myself, we were out for 5.5 hours, but we were fortunate that that was the only inconvenience that we had, was just our power being out. So thank you all for working very hard to get power up and running when you did, and for all the first responders and all the citizens of Starkville that pitched in and helped during a little storm that I don't think anybody was expecting to happen that night. So nice work for the city of Starkville.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yeah, Mr. Kemp, I want to thank you too, because you and I stayed on the phone quite a while. Edward, you and I stayed on the phone quite a while. But Mr. Mayor, did you or Taylor, either one of y'all, go out and ride around after the storm and see what disaster that we had?
We haven't done a specific windshield tour. I certainly have been around and seen the debris.
Chief Administrator, did you?
Yes, sir, I wrote it every morning.
How can we expect the landscape to be able to go out and pick all that up in a few days? There's no way. There's no way with our staff. There's no way with our finance to be able to go out and do that. What happened to our emergency fund? I know Mr. Kemp have someone that cut trees and limb. Why you and the mayor didn't direct them to go out and give the landscape some help?
Alderman, we have a plan that we're, basically, I was gonna give a summary tonight. We got that item of all of the things that we have done today, as well as present an ongoing plan to help bring the situation to a quick conclusion. But we do need some board action to make some of these changes, and we'll be bringing that when that item is considered tonight.
I feel like we're a week late. Not only failing the city, we're failing Ms. Gander, and we expect her and her crew to do all this. There's no way possible. There's no way possible for her. I have rolled around and looked. It is no way possible for her. She doesn't even have the equipment to move all this stuff. So how did we expect for her and her crew to get this moved? There's no way.
All I can say is thank you for the comment. We have had daily meetings with Ms. Gandy and her team, and I believe have responded to every request that she has brought forward to us. And I think that we have a strong plan for going forward to close this out that we'll present tonight.
I hope so, because I'm tired of phone calls.
Yes.
Any further comments by the members of the board? Alderman Maynard.
If there's no objection, I would like us to move item E under engineering. Alderman Dumas' presentation up to item A under board business. He's got an obligation he needs to get to. If nobody objects to that.
All right, without objection, we'll reorder the agenda, placing item 11E1, a report from the city engineer and Alderman Dumas on the smart transit system, to item A under board business. Is there any objection? All right, seeing none, please note the change to your agenda. Alderman Maynard, do you have further comments?
No, sir.
Any further comments from the members of the board? Any further comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. We have destroyed the Constitution by trying to beat people across the head with it and trying to destroy the Bible. Monday night, a week ago, that's just a warning to us. when he seek vengeance, he give you a warning. We didn't see no pay raise, but we had to scuffle and do what we could with what we had. And so, be very careful. Monday night was just a warning. Think about Smithdale and Louisville. It didn't take long. The female drivers that have to deal with the public, it's kind of hard on them when you have vanity, degrading women, and fights. They're only females and only can do so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Pastor Buck.
Mayor and Board of Aldermen, I'm Johnny Buckner, born and raised in Starkville, Mississippi, serving as pastor of New Horizons Christian Fellowship, and I currently live in Ward 7. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. These are some of my observations in line with what you have been speaking of. It is my perspective that in recent years, as storms and even tornadoes have hit our region, that there have been numerous times that the greater area of Starkville has been miraculously spared. CNN posted a local photo of a massive swirling cloud approaching Starkville in April of 2011. However, Starkville was spared, while cities around the region were devastated. Once I remember that a violent storm system split around Starkville with tornadoes going north and south of Starkville. Again, Starkville was spared. I know that people across the body of Christ in Starkville were praying at those times, and I believe God had mercy. From an unharmed Starkville, the body of Christ here has been able to be an important catalyst to help those in need in our neighboring communities during such times of crisis. When the storms were coming last week, we challenged local believers and church leaders not to take our city's peace and protection for granted. We are in a different season. As microburst winds hit Starkville last Monday, local newspapers reported that in sharp, brief storm that hit just after 5 p.m., Starkville was among the hardest hit locations. Mayor Wiseman was also quoted as saying that most of the city's 11,000 electric customers lost power for a time. Thankfully, we have served in the past in other disaster-traumatized cities. Our neighboring communities this time came to the aid of our seriously injured Starkville. I personally believe that this is a new season. I believe that leaders of Christian fellowships and ministries around Starkville are taking this seriously. And in some ways, the church has been neglectful and complacent. I just say no longer. We are repenting of any neglect and complacency. We are rallying to our message of the good news of Jesus and to our biblical values and principles. We want you to know that we are praying for you, our governmental leaders. We pledge our support and greater involvement in this community. We're calling all of us, our Christian brothers and sisters, to remember the source of healing for our land. And as Alderman Vaughn prayed earlier, 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Buck. Further citizen comments?
Cindy Brown. I wanted to make a few comments about the Golden Triangle Walk to End Alzheimer's. First of all, I wanted to thank you, Mayor, and Taylor for getting it put on the agenda. It was a very successful walk. Mayor, thank you for making some TV appearances for us. We really appreciate that. Alderman Vaughn, well, Mayor and Alderman Vaughn took the time out of their busy schedule to show up for the walk, and that was very, very appreciated. Buddy Sanders, I wanted to thank you. You were the point person for the city. And I just wanted the city to know that what the city employees did, they raised $550, and that's just city employees. That's not out in the public. That's just city employees. And the police department raised $1,025. They got their own team together and raised $1,025. So Chief is not here. I wanted to say thank you to Chief Nichols and to Brooke Carpenter. She's the one that got out and raised most of that money. thank you, Alderman Nguyen, for getting back with me to let me know that you couldn't be there. But, and I also wanted to just brag a little bit. We were the only, there's 8 walks in Mississippi, and we're the only one in Mississippi that hit every goal that Jackson set for us. So we're pretty proud of that. And next year, what we're hoping is that we can, we're gonna get it in Starkville next year. As long as I can get you guys to agree to, and ladies to agree to, we're hoping we can put it somewhere downtown. But, it's a very worthy cause, and we appreciate the, support of the city. Thank you, especially you, Mayor. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
Further citizen comments?
Good evening. I'm Doug Bedsall, resident of Ward 1, and more pertinent to tonight, I'm a business owner on South Lafayette Street. I watched an interest as you guys took up a proposal to make some improvements to the 100 block of South Lafayette in your last meeting, and I know that you're going to consider that again tonight. I know that you've already mentioned a few times the storm damage from this last week. My business was also affected by that. We lost some of our roof and a lot of our equipment. The reason that's important for tonight is that means I'm going to have to reinvest into my business. You may hopefully have read the email that I sent to each of you, and was also picked up by one of the local papers. I'm only one of 3 or 4 businesses on that one block of downtown that has invested quite a bit of money in the past year. There's another 3 or 4 that are investing even more than I am. This is a very important part of our downtown area. It helps to bring in income and tax revenues to the city. What I would like to see you do is continue some of the projects that you've already started on Main Street, whether we're talking about ADA parking, flower beds, handrails, improved sidewalks. Continue those to the other areas of downtown. South Washington, Jackson Street, all of these are areas that need the same improvements. But if you'll look around, South Lafayette is by far the worst. In addition to that, there are limited handicap parking opportunities, which does affect my business and all the others around me. The lighting situation at the corner of Lampkin and Lafayette, the stoplight has recently been switched over to a stop sign, which is inexplicable. The stop sign itself has been hit at least once, is leaning over and has scratches on it. I don't know if you've attempted to make a left turn at that intersection, but the stop sign itself blocks the view from any traffic coming from the right. So I'd like to see that intersection improved, the streets improved, the sidewalks improved, and the street itself cleaned more regularly. I know that Main Street gets cleaned. Looking at conditions, I doubt that Lafayette Street actually gets cleaned. There's paper and broken glass almost every week. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bedsall. Further citizen comments?
Good afternoon, Mayor and the board. I just wanted to come, my name is Kayla Gilmore with KMG Creations. I just wanted to come officially to invite you all to our 6th annual military charity dance recital to take place Thursday, November the 6th at 6:30 at First United Methodist Fellowship Hall. My special speaker is Mr. John Robert Arnold. He is a World War II veteran. And I will have a special dance presentation from Ms. Tanner Fant. She is our 2015 Distinguished Woman of Mississippi. She will do a special dance appearance, special dance performance. This is a free event for everybody and for the public. I hope you come out in fellowship November the 6th, 2014, 6:30 p.m. And that's a Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilmore. Further citizen comments?
Good evening. I'm Alexis McCork. I have no comment, but I'm here to represent the Mayor's Youth Council.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy. And you can always remember that as your first citizen comment at a public meeting. Do we have any further citizen comments?
I have just a quick one. Sandra Sistrunk, Ward 2. And I want to tag on to what Mr. Bedsall said. There is a need for improvements throughout downtown, and I know how hard it is to do, given all that is going on. But I'm particularly concerned about the intersection, and I'm sure that the city engineer has a plan to address it. But if, for any of you who go down Lafayette to the new stop sign where the light has been taken out, it's very difficult to see around that building, and you find yourself having to pull almost into the intersection in order to be able to turn. And traffic doesn't slow down for you as you're doing that. So as y'all are talking about Lafayette, I hope you'll look at a very real, in my opinion, public safety issue there with that stop sign and how that can be improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sistra. Further citizen comments? Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none, that will take us all the way to board business. And Alderman Dumas, you and Mr. Kemp caught a break. You get to make your presentation early this
And I
evening.
greatly appreciate that, Alderman. I really appreciate that. Well, thank y'all for having me. Good to see all y'all. And I do appreciate Alderman Maynard moving me up. I did not realize until middle of the afternoon I had another appointment. I know that several months back y'all had many discussions and questions and comments about Sportsplex and SMART. And I think a good thing that came out of that was that y'all tasked Edward and Jason to get a committee together that consisted of Edward and Jason and Cody and myself and Herman and Parks and Rec to discuss what the real issues are at the parks or at the Sportsplex. And I want to talk just a little bit about SMART, where we are, how we got here just quickly, and give you the numbers of where we see ridership and what the actual ridership numbers are, because I think you'll be impressed with how it's changed. And then Edward will go and present some ideas along with Alderman Walker about some of the alternatives that we saw, improvements that could be made to the park that would not only benefit Starkville area rapid transit and Mississippi State, but also just the general traffic from a Sportsplex perspective, because I think any of you who've been there know that it's on any given weeknight, there's a lot of traffic on your roads there, Alderman Wynn. So, just real quickly, there's a lot of partnerships and there's a lot of information that goes into SMART. SMART is actually funded through MDOT. It's a 5311 grant. A 5311 grant is a rural mass transit program. MDOT and federal highways, these are actually federal highway dollars. They represent or recognize 50,000 populations or less as rural urban areas or rural areas. Anything above that is treated as an urbanized area and has a totally different set of metrics that they have to play through if and when they look at mass transit. So us as a rural area, by definition of being less than $50,000 or 50,000 folks, we have to look at different things. Specifically, we have to look not only at the movement of individuals who are similarly situated, so just common individuals within the community, but we also have to look at paratransit plans to provide full ADA access to anyone within 3/4 of a mile of our service area. So we have a paratransit plan that goes in partnership with the Golden Triangle Planning and Development District, and we work with different groups in developing those plans and have that in place in case there is a need for individuals who need those accommodations. Through the Secretary of the State, we're also required to provide access for voter ID. So coming up on an election here in November, anyone within our service area who needs access to the courthouse so that they can register as an ID, we provide access to and from within our service area to and from the courthouse so that they can register. And then obviously we try to hit as many polling places as we can as part of our regular service areas. And then Easy Tag, because we get federal funding, we have to coordinate throughout the state with mass transit districts. They at one time were spread across the planning and development districts, but some of those were lost. We lost our planning and development district transportation planning aspect here, so we're now part of the Easy Tag district, which is actually goes from Meridian all the way up into Clay County, Chickasaw County area, and it's actually run out of and coordinated out of the Choctaw Transit Group in Pearl River. And so everything that we do has to be a coordinated effort. And in theory, what that means is if someone who is in Tunica County wants to get to the coast, or vice versa, they call their coordination manager within their district, and those managers are responsible in finding a way in which those can use mass transit or on-call transit to coordinate that movement across the state. So we actually map our routes, we submit those, we meet quarterly, and they're a big part of our process. And that is a big effort with Federal Highways and with MDOT this year. In terms of funding, this is an 80-20 and a 50-50 cost share between MSU and MDOT. And what that means is from a capital perspective, so when we buy a shelter or when we buy a bus, that's an 80-20 cost share between MSU and MDOT. From our annual operating costs, paying salaries, printing costs, the day-to-day operational stuff, that's a 50-50 cost share. The city is a big help in that in terms of in-kind match, and that's the role that the city pays. The cost share actually, the cash cost share actually comes out of parking revenues and parking operation budgets on campus, but the city is a big help in terms of providing shelter pads. We've installed 2 shelter pads. Got a picture of one in just a minute, but one is on University Drive at the Catholic Church, and then the other is at the at Lynn Lane at the mailboxes across from the Grove and Ferndale, or I forget the name of it. But the key with that is because of that ADA paratransit issue, we can't just go put a shelter out there. Those shelters have to be on an accessible route, and they have to be in an area where our shuttles, which are all ADA accessible, they have ADA lifts. All those have to be serviced within an ADA region within that context of that shelter. So that's a big part of the help that Edward and y'all bring to the table. And obviously getting electric to those. All our shelters are solar powered, so the lights operate solar through solar energy, but the ETA signs, and I'll show you an example of those, or the website. We actually track live GPS tracking, live estimated time of arrivals, and actual passenger counts. And so we're putting those signs at each location so that folks can see a real on-time arrival. These are just some numbers that we submit every year when we look at the demographics of exactly what Starkville is. We look at low and moderate income, working age class. We have over 10,000 folks that are above the 16 working age. We have 91% of those that basically carpool or drive to work alone. 78% carpool, 0.1% currently ride public transit. But the key issue is that 2.6% of those have no vehicle. So when you look at that span between, that's a real target area that we see from a carless population that we, in our funding source, try to target. So that's where we try to build our services around is we know the working age is there. We know there's that percentage that don't actually have a car or access to a car, and we want to provide services for those. Just some other general numbers that we pull through our grant that makes us eligible for what we get when you look at poverty rates and what those high school graduation rates are. And all of these then went into a study that some of y'all have already seen before in how we defined where it is that we service. We specifically have to, based on the 5311 target areas, we have to service government facilities, health departments, health care, parks and recreational facilities, and those are all parts that we provide service to individuals within the city. Obviously, it's an MSU, it's run through MSU Transportation and Transit, so we look at MSU hubs, where are school areas within the community, where are shopping areas, where are public housing authority facilities, where are healthcare facilities, where are student populations. So all these went into a study that we then looked at the walkability of each one of these areas because, again, back to that ADA issue, we knew that we didn't want to put a stop in an area that did not have access to the immediate context. So if we put a stop at the Sportsplex or we put a stop at Brooksville Gardens or at Brickfire or at the hospital, how big of a service area based on the network of sidewalks that feed into that can we actually look at? And this is based on the idea that it takes a common individual about 5 minutes to walk a quarter mile. And so that's a comfortable walk within our climate. And so these are all quarter-mile radiuses that you see. We then develop routes on how we want to look at that. How do we get to and from campus with student populations? But most importantly from tonight is how do we then move individuals around the community so that they can get to and from work, to and from recreational aspects, to and from retail, to and from healthcare, and to and from government services. And that's where these connecting the dots came in. and ultimately our routes. So these are the routes we're currently working. Now, some of these are a little different. Obviously, we don't make that that exact route downtown because of the construction of the city hall. We'll actually turn and go up by Starkville Electric and turn and come back. But this is an example of where we do travel. The key in the downtown route and the Sportsplex route, which you see going down Lynn Lane, is that we wanted to provide as many opportunities as crossover or hubbing as we could, so that an individual that's on the Boardtown route, which is the circular route that goes around town, would have the opportunity at the Sportsplex or at the two other stops on Lynn Lane to also get on the route that would take him to campus. The same would happen downtown, and so we use those areas as real hub areas. This is an example of our bus. I mentioned the ADA process, and these are the standards of buses that we're going to. These are 35, 40 capacity or 40 passenger capacity shuttles. These are the shelters that we're installing now. As you can see, these are the improvements that were made at Lynn Lane to connect Park Circle. This is our website, and so this is smart.msstate.edu, and if you click on the live map portion of this, it pulls up this portion of the website, and this is accessible from a smartphone or from a computer, obviously, or an iPad. But any route that you want to see, you can click on that route and you can see the actual shuttle location. So the shuttle is sitting at this point, which is the HPCC at the research park. It tells you how full that shuttle is, and it tells you the estimated time of arrivals at all the three sequential next stops. So we see that as a real positive with folks who are on campus or around town who would like to know where the shuttle is, how full the shuttle is, and then how long it will take them to get to their next stops. Another one of the in-kind services that y'all do provide is helping us put these signs up. I'm sorry, it's a little tricky. These are the signs that we've purchased, and we've actually mimicked these on the signs that were purchased by the CVB for wayfinding in town. So these are the route maps. So at every location that these signs are, and each stop has one of these signs. It tells you where you are, it tells you what type of district you're in, and it tells you what you can get to within that 5 mile or quarter-mile walk radius. So at this point, you're at the Start Road North, which is at the Premier Cancer Clinic, and that's a quarter-mile walking radius from that standpoint. We're making some improvements to this map and actually working on ordering new stickers that we'll put on them. The good thing is we can peel the cover off of the front of this and put new stickers on every year. We've just hired a marketing coordinator who's helping us get all our messages out. These are posters and signs you've seen around town. This past summer, we acquired 2 trolleys. So these are the trolleys that are now servicing the Old Main Express, which is the route that goes from downtown to campus. They work on game day, so these are the insides of the trolleys. They actually have the brass bell. Very iconic. The seats are not all that comfortable, but we think that's it pays good homage to the fact that we now see ourselves as a historical town and who we
The
are.
haunted trolley at Pumpkin Palooza was a very nice touch.
Yeah, and that was another one of the great ideas of our new marketing coordinator was that we did park the trolley, we blacked it out and had witches on it and candy, and they got to ride the ADA lift. And
Yep.
I think our folks had more fun than the others, but I understand there was a huge line.
There was a huge line.
Huge line to get in. So yeah, we've had a good time with the trolleys, and they've been a real good service for us. All right, so here are the numbers. These are our ridership numbers from January 2nd, which is when the whole route system went in place. But all told, we've moved 485,000 folks. We've got 7 routes. We have 4 routes that are on campus, which is the Greek Loop, the Central Loop, the South Loop, and the Research Loop. And so those 3 are by and large campus-centric. The 3 that really impact the city of Starkville are the Sportsplex Express, which leaves the Sportsplex, goes Lynn Lane, Montgomery, Loxley Way, and then ultimately goes to Montgomery Hall. The Boardtown Loop is the loop that goes from the hospital, Reed Road, Walmart, down to the Sportsplex, hits retail areas on 12, goes downtown, and then back to the hospital. And then the Old Main Express leaves downtown and goes to Giles Architecture at the stadium and then back, picking up along University Drive. So the good thing that we see in this is that we've had a campus shuttle system since 1996, so those standards have been in place for a long time. So obviously we move a lot of people on those 3 top loops of you know, we're averaging, in the middle column there is the daily average ridership. So we're averaging almost 2,000 folks on one route. But when you look at the Sportsplex, and when you look at the Boardtown Loop, and you look at the Old Main Express, those are all new routes that just started in January. And we've seen a 414% increase, 469, 503 from the September numbers and what we saw in January. And the good thing the good part about that is when you take even the summer out of that, or when you consider the summer as part of it, we didn't see the big dips that we anticipated in the summer. We thought that the summer would be, now we saw some small dips with especially the campus routes and the Old Main Express, but Boardtown continued to track strong. So currently we're moving 132 folks per day on the Boardtown Loop, 178 on the Old Main Express, but the big surprise for all of us has been the Sportsplex. What we're able to generate along Lynn Lane, Loxley, and picking up at Forest Products and at University not Commons. What's the crossing the veranda?
College Station.
College Station. So those are the numbers as they are now. We have just required funding for our next fiscal year. This is an annual funding cycle. We know there's changes that have to be there, and we've made these public through public meetings, but we know that we need to split the Boardtown Loop, for example. It's a really long ride when you go from the hospital all the way down to the Sportsplex. Yeah. So this is this will be the north half. This will be the south half. We've had a lot of interest from Emerson to service Emerson Public School, so we're exploring the opportunity of going down Emerson. There is a lot of opportunity and a lot of need for service along Louisville Street and Old Highway 25. The big issue that we're facing at that point is that we don't have enough room to get one of the large shuttles off and be able to safely get individuals off the shuttle and to their respective places. So we're exploring how to do that. The good thing is that there's some new infrastructure behind OBs, and I don't know the proper term of these roads, but there's some opportunity to improve service using some interior roads. We've had a lot of interest from Rolling Hills and Boardtown. I don't know if it's a nursing home, you forgive me there too, but we've had a lot of interest on North Montgomery, so we know we're going to expand in that area. A lot of interest in residential areas along Whitfield Street, Greensboro Street, and being able to pick up individuals who want direct access with the Old Main Express route into campus. So by and large, it's been very positive in the feedback that we've gotten. Y'all may also realize that on game days we move about 2,500, 3,000 people a day from downtown to campus. And that's a direct benefit to folks downtown because they're parking here. Oftentimes they're not getting out of their car, getting directly on the shuttle and going to campus and back. They're mingling and shopping and doing the things they can. So that's a good service that's paid for by the partnership in athletics. So some big time changes on these that we think will add service to areas that are largely underserved.
I'll take it from here. This board back in August had a long discussion about, I think it originated with the condition of the roadways out at the Sportsplex, and they were just deteriorating due to the buses and the frequency of the traffic there, how the Sportsplex was not originally designed for this type of activity. So this board tasked me with two things. One is to report back with I think this board also had not heard the full SMART system overview on where it originated from and all the benefits of it. So one aspect was just kind of give a brief overview of that, talk about some of the shuttle stops, particularly at the Sportsplex and why it was needed. And I think Alderman Dumas did a good job of that just now. And then the other thing is to come up with some alternatives for the Sportsplex drop-off site specifically. And Alderman Dumas, Alderman Walker, Director Peters, myself, and my associate in the engineering department all met one morning for probably 2 or 3 hours, and I would guess to say we probably explored about 18 to 20 different alternatives. Everything from, I remember Alderman Carver had mentioned a drop-off off of Lynn Lane. We explored using the gravel lot adjacent. We explored using Spruill Industrial, McKee Park. Everything that we could have thought of, we ran that rabbit trail, and what we're about to present tonight is what we think is the best solution going forward. It's more of a long-term solution. It's a solution that kind of can be bit off in chunks. But it's not a solution that's necessarily just for the SMART system. It's a solution that we all think could benefit the park, that could benefit the city, and that could accommodate the SMART buses going forward as well. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Alderman Walker and let him go through the different alternatives, if that's okay.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you, Alderman Dumas. We had much discussion that night about the condition of the sportsplex and how we might come up with alternatives. And I think what we've come up with that we're going to present tonight, I think, is a way forward for the immediate relief of the sportsplex. But I think as importantly as that immediate relief is, I think is it gives a long-term roadmap for how we make a major transportation improvement along Lynn Lane with a changing context like we've seen in other places across town. Not only do you have the sportsplex, but you have the Christian school, and you have the numerous apartments there that put a lot of stress on that road that was not really designed to handle that amount of traffic. So I think these alternatives are going to help. Looking at this in phases, phase one, if you just to get your bearings, you're going, you see the sportsplex down on your bottom left right here. You see the intersection, or not currently, it's not an intersection, but you see Lynn Lane and the entrance to Logan Drive to the north and the sportsplex entrance to the south. What we're proposing in phase one is to move the existing the bus shelter from the interior of the sportsplex, putting it across the north side of Lynn Lane onto Logan Drive. The buses now would be coming down, traveling east or west along Lynn Lane and traveling down on Logan Drive and looping around and stopping right there. What this would do is this would require a signalized intersection at this, creating a signalized intersection at the entrance to the sportsplex, which if anybody drives on the sportsplex, whether it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon when the Christian school is getting in or out, or in the morning when they're going to school, or in the evening when you're trying to get to a baseball or soccer game, making a left-hand turn off of Lynn Lane sometimes can become just about impossible and quite dangerous. So from an engineering perspective, and Edward, I'll let you address that, a signalized intersection greatly improves transportation, and more importantly, for the short term, is it allows us to move the bus stop across the street and still have access and service to meet the 5311 grant to the sportsplex.
Right, and that's the key part of our, again, with the ADA lift on the right-hand side, our need is to be able to pull the bus to the curb on the right. And so that way we can pull and address the shelter and the shuttle stop with individuals not having to get out into a roadway but onto the curb and to a sidewalk, because that's the safest alternative. The key with this is that, as Jason mentioned, and again, I'm being selfish here, is that it takes a big clearance in traffic for those buses to get out into the travel lane, and so we almost always have to exit or enter into a travel lane through a signal, and that's just from a safety perspective, because field of view from a large vehicle standpoint, we prefer to enter a travel lane through a signal. And not only from our standpoint, but getting access to the sportsplex, because we do drop off folks. Now, Herman has told me, and this is definitely the case, there's just as many people who access the shelter and the shuttles from the Logan Park Circle side of the street as they do the sportsplex. So I mentioned those 600 folks that travel or use this every day. All those are not parking at the sportsplex. Probably a small percentage of them are. There's just as many that are traveling or using it from the north side of the road. But for those that do need service to the sportsplex, they have to have that ADA accessible route from the shelter to be able to get there.
Can I add one more thing on that? If you're familiar, Logan Circle starts down here on Lynn Lane, and it actually makes a horseshoe.
That's right.
It's a pretty large neighborhood. Has I don't know the number of units in that circle, but it's pretty significant. It's a city street designed to handle heavier loads. This plan would get the buses out of the sportsplex altogether and eliminate the need to do additional, more reinforced, higher structural value or increased structural repairs to the sportsplex parking lot. We can simply make those repairs that we're doing now and not have to build a parking lot to accommodate these buses.
So like Alderman Dumas said, we, talking with Mr. Peters, said that, there's a high ridership coming from that Logan Drive that either drive across to the Sportsplex and Park or actually cross the street. And so this would provide, again, signalized intersection due to the changing context of that street is an engineering clear way forward. Phase 2 would be, you already have a signalized intersection. Now this would be taking that a step further to actually make it more usable, creating a left-hand turn lane off of Lynn Lane, and also widening the Sportsplex entrance to create both a right and a left-hand turn lane to actually make that a true signalized intersection with crosswalks, being able to access all of that, to allow more queuing line along Lynn Lane without stopping traffic.
Alderman Walker, is Lynn Lane currently wide enough for 3 lanes, or you talking about adding?
That's what phase 2 would be, widening this portion of Lynn
Just
Lane
to
to
make
accommodate a turn lane as you near the intersection. Edward, would you like to speak more to that?
I mean, right. Essentially, if you want a left turn into the Sportsplex and there's so much eastbound traffic that there's not a place for that car to turn, it's going to back up all the westbound traffic.
Which it currently does.
Right, exactly. Even with the signal, you'll still have that same issue, but having a dedicated left turn lane will allow the westbound traffic to continue, as well as the widening will allow two different ways to exit out of the Sportsplex, a right and a left, which would help the efficiency of that.
How much are you gonna have to widen the road right there to get that left-hand turn? How much do we have to widen the road?
I think the road right now is ballpark around 24 to 26 feet. We're looking at adding another 10 to 12 feet minimum on, and then of course it tapers back to the existing on either side. And now the Sportsplex roadway would need to be widened as well. Was that your question? Or were you talking about Lynn Lane? Yeah, the Sportsplex is probably only 20 feet wide.
How much is all that in phase 2? How much?
We have that number at the
Yeah.
end. We can get that. I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head.
How's this gonna play into the Lynn Lane improvements that we've got going on right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
So this would be the time to address it.
Yeah, we designed Lynn Lane for a future 3-lane. So in other words, we didn't build right up to the edge of the road. The sidewalk, my laser pointer's gone out, but the sidewalk you see in gray there, kind of running along the north edge of the parking lot, that could probably be eliminated once we have the Lynn Lane bike path in there. So essentially, we'll just provide a connection up to the sidewalk coming out of the front door of the Sportsplex. But the widening itself would not impact the construction.
So phase 3 would be looking, currently there's one formal entrance and one entrance to overflow, that if you think the parking in the existing parking lot is bad, try driving through that overflow parking lot. As the Sportsplex expands and increase numbers of users of the park, this would look at how do these proposed changes impact creating an additional entrance at the current overflow with a connection that goes to the existing parking lot and the existing entrance. At this point, the shelter on Logan Drive could either be added or replaced, or an additional shelter could be placed right here that allow the bus to loop around at that point. Further providing more infrastructure as parking in the future expands, you would have access off of roads that could accommodate that load. Looking even farther down the road, this would be phase 4. The existing Sportsplex entrance, if that road were to continue and tie into Sproul Industrial Road, the big expense here is obviously a bridge, but now you've created 3 entrances into the Sportsplex off of Sproul Industrial Road that would greatly improve transportation and circulation at the Sportsplex. Taking a little bit further looking at it, if you see McKee Park, if you look right here, the Sproul Road runs directly north and ties into Lynn Lane. Just like we have an issue at the entrance to the Sportsplex, you also have a very similar entrance turning into McKee Park. This would look at aligning a new entrance from McKee Park to align with the entrance from Sproul Industrial Road and creating another potential signalized intersection right there. So you're then handling infrastructure for both of your major park systems on this side of town. That would greatly improve transportation and safety in transportation and movement into and out of the parks. A signalized four-way intersection as opposed to what we currently have at McKee Park would be a tremendous improvement. Now, I believe the next slide, so this would be kind of the long-term master plan for what the overall transportation, but when we were set down to look at how do you address the immediate need, how does that also factor into what our long-term challenges and what we might need in that area would be? And so now Edward has a little bit of the numbers on each one of these 5 phases, how we get there.
Yeah, so keep in mind, these are conceptual numbers based on this conceptual plan. But phase 1, which would include the signal, the transit pad, and the sidewalk infrastructure to get across the street to the sportsplex, is right at $100,000. That signal is currently, the way we have it priced is the signal, the mast arm signal that would be designed for a future 3-lane, so it would be wide enough to accommodate that and have the appropriate wiring and signalization installed to where when you did do the 3-lane, you could essentially just retrofit it. Phase 2, Alderman Carver, that you were asking about, is $160,000. That's to widen Lynn Lane on either side of the intersection, as well as widen the entrance/exit of the sportsplex. Phase 3 is the road going through the overflow and moving the shelter is another $54,000. Phase 4 is extending the sportsplex entrance across to Sproul is $217,000, and then Phase 5, realigning the McKee entrance, is $125,000.
When we get into this point as a policymaker, you know, we go from a program that just really has our input or our return as a city, but you know, that's some pretty substantial dollars, and I would rather see that money maybe used. I mean, this is leading into my question is, before we do all this and start having that conversation, is that's significant, you know, and we got places all over town, I think, roads that are falling in, and you know, how much would it cost just to redo this? I know we've talked about getting it out of there, but here's in the back, while I've got you here, Alderman Dumas. Does it have to, you know, there's 2 other stops within a quarter mile there. Does this constitute, do we have to have a pickup at the sportsplex to meet your qualifications for your 5311 grant dollars?
We need to service a park facility.
And y'all are against McKee for?
Well, we can't get in and out of McKee. There's no way to pull in and out of it. And that's because those buses can't, I mean, for service standpoint, and that intersection is actually worse for us than the one at Sproul. The key with the sportsplex is that the big services that are offered in the sportsplex building are things that a lot of our riders want to get to, both within the multi-tenant building or the old sportsplex and the new building. We could stop, but it goes back to that access question, because you have to be able to have an accessible route from where we would drop someone off for their access to the park. And I think that would get, if you look at where our current stop is at the mailboxes, then you're talking about a pretty significant infrastructure change all the way along Lynn Lane in terms of ADA accessibility. And you still have to cross at a signalized intersection for it to be safe. So you still get to that that signalization question of where do you actually put the signal so that you can press the button and they cross the road.
Okay, Mr. Kent, what would it cost to make the roadway adequate within the sportsplex entrance to keep it like it is, but just make the road bed where it's not giving way like it is? How much would it cost to redo a full, make that?
We didn't do a full cost analysis on that, Alderman, but I'm guessing it is gonna cost, I'm thinking at least $150,000.
And that's not the parking lots, this parking spaces, that's just the main roadway to the back. It'd be 150 versus. And I'm just, and I don't know what the answer is right now. You know, if you've got to have that for your grant dollars, and we got to figure a solution. But I don't know what it is. I'm just putting those talking points out there.
Well, and bear in mind, the first phase of this solves the issue of wear and tear at the sportsplex. And what was the cost estimate on that?
$100,000.
Yeah, 100,000.
And that's just leaving the traffic heading westbound, trying to get in the Sportsplex, doing just like it is now. It's basically a signaled intersection, but it's without any kind of roadway widening,
The
right?
big cost on that is obviously the signal.
It's that one.
Okay.
And to be clear from our standpoint, I mean, we want to give people access to the Sportsplex.
Right.
And we want to do it as efficiently as we can. The Sportsplex is actually a hub for two different routes. So at different times of the day, you may see two shuttles that are there because one's the Boardtown route, plus you have the Sportsplex route. And they actually try to coincide as closely as they can so that individuals getting off one and onto the other don't have to wait as long. It actually works better for us if we did not have to go through the parking lot to go all the way to the back, because we have to pull all the way through. And of course on Saturdays, we've all heard the complaints of, you've got soccer folks out there, you've got baseball folks out there, and that's hard to navigate just in a regular vehicle, much less a $200,000 shuttle. And so we want to make it as efficient as possible too.
So
And-
with this, I mean, I'm probably leaning for this for the reason you're gonna always ingress into the eastern side of that neighborhood and you'll make your loop, right?
Right.
Okay, that's that big loop that goes through the back.
Right, you can
Okay.
see it a little better on the final slide.
Well, if you do that, then I guess my last and final question is, okay, so to go in right there and come out and I don't know what you call it, but when that bus is sitting there, if anybody's pulling out, as a neighborhood, as a constituent of that neighborhood, they're gonna have an option. They know if they don't wanna wait on that light, they can go out the back way. The shuttle can't, but they can. Does that make sense? So, I mean, they have a way, okay, I can get out if I wanna try to get out a little quicker,
And
but.
the reason, one reason why this was Difficult is because there is a bus coming from the west. What loop is that? The
Boardtown,
Boardtown?
yeah.
And then you also have a bus coming from the east.
Well, can you reverse the Boardtown loop?
Well, we have them going both directions. That way, if you're at the hospital and need to go to Brickfire, you don't have to wait all the way around. We have one going both directions. But we can enter, so the bus coming from the west, they can enter here, go up and come down. The bus coming from the east can go. But the
That's the
key
thir-
is, we want to change, we need to get out into traffic at a signalized light.
I was wrong. There's 3 entrances to that neighborhood.
Yeah, there's 3.
Oh,
There's
okay.
this one, and this one.
So, yeah, the people could get out, if they don't want to go and wait at that light, they could go out any of the 3.
That's correct. Yeah, they could go either direction. They
And
could go
at the
either direction.
Sportsplex, so y'all, one more question, I have written them down. But the Sportsplex, I see you walkway across the street, and would you think you're gonna have designated parking spots on that north side, or they'll just be general parking? I know that's more of a Herman.
No, and that was a question I was actually asked today. If I was concerned about folks parking in here, and, from our standpoint, the park and ride, the folks who want to park here that don't live here and go to campus, we would hope they use this. Now, there's no way, we don't have the authority to enforce where people do or don't park. We're just picking folks up. This access is key for those to be able to park over here in order to get over here. But the big issue with this over here would be that we would then service all of these without all of these folks having to cross Lynn Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments for the presenters? Alderman Little.
One more thing we need to be mindful of, like you mentioned on the Saturdays, if you're out there late afternoon when they're practicing or got a game going on, it's a safety issue. It's not just impact on the parking lot out there these buses driving through. It's just a matter of time for some kid darts across there, and that big bus can't stop on a dime.
That's right.
So we need to be mindful of that too. And you mentioned earlier cost share. Is this something the city would bear the 100% of this expense, or is this something?
We don't have monies in ours to pay for city infrastructure, so that would be a city expense.
Yeah. And remember, the university is spending about $1 million a year operationally to operate the system. So whatever the infrastructure solution is, this is our part of the deal.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just add one other thing. I think regardless of whether this was a smart transit issue, I think the long-term moving forward is it makes a lot of sense for this to be a signalized intersection. Just for the traffic that moves through there, and the expediency and the safety of that traffic, both going through the Sportsplex and continuing to move east or west. The other things are certainly are much longer term capital improvement kind of ideas, but that signalized intersection and widening of that road for the turn lanes there are I would argue are certainly needed infrastructure improvements. That should get us a long way towards improving Lynn Lane for the foreseeable future.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board?
Thank you.
Any
Thank you,
further
Alderman
questions or
Dumas
comments?
and City Engineer Kemp for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
The next matter that you have before you is discussion and consideration of repairing, resurfacing, and striping of the section of Garrett Road between North Montgomery and 389. Discussion.
Mayor, may I be written?
You may.
I brought this forward. We have an opportunity, I think, to hopefully get this done with existing funds in this budget year before winter sets in. I was pleased to read that the City of Columbus just accepted some bids for new roads, and they came in under budget, which was nice. I guess that's because oil prices are down, gas prices are down. We just completed in the summer of this year the sidewalk, and we've all heard citizens voice concerns of sidewalks to nowhere. We've actually completed the sidewalk on Garrett Road all the way down to the end between North Jackson and North Montgomery, and the road is in a great need of repair there. So I would like us to move forward with having the city, if they could, do the repairs to that road and then us get it resurfaced and striped. But the other item that I would like to see, if we're going to go forward with this, and I'll ask Mr. Kemp to explain in a little detail, but currently, if you're coming south from Rock Hill Road and you get to the intersection of Garrett Road and North Montgomery, there is a exit turn to get on to Garrett Road. I would like to see us eliminate that exit turn to slow down traffic at that intersection. I'd like to see us do it much like we did on the corner of Reed Road and Garrett Road, where we closed that area off, landscaped it, just put some shrubs, crepe myrtles there, and eventually I would personally like us to look at exploring putting a four-way stop at Garrett and Montgomery to match the four-way stop at Garrett and North Jackson as well. But people going into town from Rock Hill Road or going out of town on North Montgomery just fly through there, and as more and more traffic comes into there, it just seems like it'd be a lot safer for us to slow that traffic down. That, you mentioned that's possible to.
Yeah, I would recommend that. Those deceleration lanes are typically seen when you're trying to maintain a very high level of speed when you're going onto an on-ramp or a freeway or something of that nature. But I don't see the need for it when you have two, somewhat residential streets coming together, and the idea is not to maintain a high level of speed, but is to probably slow the traffic down, if anything. So I think it's a good idea on the traffic.
And it's interesting because the neighbor on that corner has placed large rocks in his yard to slow the traffic down. So I'm sure people were running off the road into his yard over time as well. So with that, Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve having the city do the repairing on that street immediately, and then resurfacing and striping that section of Garrett Road between North Montgomery and Highway 389, and adding those safety improvements that we discussed at the intersection of Garrett and Montgomery.
All right. Could you pass that to me? All right, so your motion is to approve of repairing, resurfacing, and striping the section of Garrett Road between North Montgomery and Highway 389, and safety improvements to the intersection at Garrett and Montgomery. Is that captured in full, or do you need more at the end of that?
having the city staff do the repair of those.
All right, so the motion is to approve of city staff repairing, resurfacing,
Repairing. and then-
having city staff repairing Garrett roadway, then resurfacing and striping the section between Garrett and North Montgomery between the section of Garrett Road between North Montgomery and Highway 389, and safety improvements to the intersection of Garrett and North Montgomery. Is that your
Yes.
motion? And to clarify, because I didn't get it out cleanly, that motion would effectuate the repair of the road pre-resurfacing to be done by city staff, and then a contract job for resurfacing and striping. Is that
Yes.
correct? Hold on, let's get through the motion. Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Discussion. Alderman Little.
Do we have any cost estimates on this project?
We do.
Be under 50,000.
They were right under 50,000, I think 47,000.
And then would that include taking out that deceleration lane? Or is that gonna be an added expense?
You were intending the city staff to do that?
Yes.
And that was not included in 47.
Okay, and how much was remaining in their funds from last year?
Mr. Adams, can you verify that?
I can, on final invoicing, there was roughly, I think it was about 18,000 left in the resurfacing, budget, but then there was the board's contingency fund with more than adequate remaining funds to do this work, and those are the two funds that are spoken to, and Alderman Maynard, two funding sources spoken to in Alderman Maynard's cover sheet.
Mayor?
Alderman
I
Carver.
guess I was gonna lead in my question. The two wildest words I've ever seen since being in office is surplus and funds right beside each other. But with that being said, this says on here, this is the highest priority resurfacing project that can be accomplished with the remaining funds, and we can't accomplish it with the remaining funds. Secondly, you're talking about a $20,000 to $30,000 difference in the figures. And there's no director on here. I guess it's Alderman Maynard. We need to know that. And I don't understand why we decide, who said that was the highest priority? I think Stark Road arguably is the highest priority resurfacing in town, or anything like that, but this is the first time I've
The
seen
highest
it.
priority that.
Hold on, one at a time. Alderman Carver.
No, it's an open-ended question. It was just one of those that, this is gonna cost us money. This isn't a cost savings, and first I've seen it, so I may vote against it, but I just didn't know what discussions were made as a board. I think as a board, if we're gonna SS funding, we need to come together and figure out, a priority, how we're gonna spend it and go from there, and not a couple people on the board pick the roadway resurfacing project and we hope it passes, because it's the first I've heard of it.
You may.
This project is on the list of priorities that we've already listed out. If you go down that list, this is the first one that we.
Is there any that
forward
actually-
to do with what we had left.
Are there any that actually fit within the funding? Within 18,000 that are on there, or is this
I
the
don't think
cheapest
so.
one on there,
I
or
think
is
it was
this,
the cheapest one on there.
so this would
Hold
knock
on,
off?
He's got the list,
All right,
right?
one at a time, one at a time. And if you are asking a question, direct your question at the alderman that you'd like to ask a question to. Otherwise, you'll hold the floor until you yield.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Walker.
I agree with a lot of Alderman Carver's comments here. Looking at the 2015 street improvement program, we have total budgeted or on the priority list of roughly $455,000. Going down that list, I don't know I don't know how they're listed. If they're listed in priority, other than they all say priority 8. We have several of smaller dollar figures that could potentially be accomplished even with that 18,000 without having to tag into that. I believe this coming year we've budgeted $300,000 for street improvement programs, and right now we have $455,000. So some things on this priority list aren't going to happen. We're looking to spend another $50,000 in here. I think we could all argue for things that are in our ward of why they're a priority and why they need to happen. So I don't I don't certainly think that the Garrett Road improvement is a needed improvement, just like I would think that the Montgomery Street from Shadowwood to Sherwood is a needed improvement, and I think Stark Road from Highway 182 to Redbud is much needed improvement. I think the thing that I agree with Alderman Carver is if we're going to have this money that we're going to spend in the beginning of this fiscal year from last year's funds, it would be nice to talk about what are the priorities and how are we going to address those with the limited amount of funding that we have.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, at this time, all those in favor of Alderman Maynard's motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 4 in favor with 3 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is discussion and consideration of up to 30% of the proposed repairs and improvements to the streetscape of 100 block of South Lafayette Street in an amount not to exceed $10,000. Alderman Maynard.
Yes, sir, let me get to that one. This is a project that was tabled at the previous meeting. With the entirety of the project, I think originally the mayor had proposed borrowing the money, short-term loan to do that project. In meeting with Mr. Tabor and hearing Doug speak earlier tonight and receiving letters from several others on that street, I think it is important that we at least do something to that sidewalk to get it so the gentleman building that building can begin his project or continue his project. I agree with the gentleman that spoke earlier. That street is a huge asset to this city. There is considerable investment going on. The old Jones Shoe Shop that closed less than 60 days ago already has somebody that has purchased that building. Studs are up inside that building. It is being completely renovated. What I call the old Fred's Dollar Store, and if you've been around long enough, you'll remember that that was Fred's Dollar Store before the Fred's Dollar Store moved to down the street, is being completely renovated by Mr. Tabor for a retail facility on the bottom and residential on the top. Directly across the street, I know the building that you've renovated over there, and then Steve Langston, I think, is renovating the building right beside that. So there's lots of strong investment going on there. If you've ever tried to get from the sidewalk, from the street to the sidewalk of that building, it is difficult for a young person to get up that sidewalk, much less anybody else. And we need to make some investment into that property. We can't do it all at once, just like we can't do the Lynn Lane project all at once. Both of those projects are very much needed in the future. This project gets us at least to the point where the sidewalk becomes ADA compliant in front of that building and moving down the side of that building. Hopefully in the very, very near future, we can find the funds to do an ADA compliant ramp across from First Baptist Church up to that sidewalk, supply some steps in the middle of that street so that you can have street access that's easily accessible, and put a safety railing up from one end of that street to the other on the west side, just because it's dangerous and always has been. So Mayor, with that, I would move approval that we approve, I'd probably change the wording to this some, but approve spending up to an amount not to exceed $10,000 for the improvements to the streetscape and the proposed repairs on the 100 block of South Lafayette Street.
Right, motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve an expenditure not to exceed $10,000 for proposed improvements to the streetscape of the 100 block of South Lafayette Street. Alderman Maynard, did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Discussion. Alderman Carver.
I've got to ask my question. With that, I mean, has there been any dollar figure? I think it's a good idea. I do, first of all. Second, but, when you come to dollars and cents, is it I'm hearing 30% and 10,000. I don't want to get halfway through the project and not even making, a dent in it. How much, is that going to be significant enough to help those business owners out?
The 10,000 is going to level that sidewalk in front of that building.
You're talking about the steps on the sidewalk?
No, just the sidewalk itself.
Just
To
level
get
that
it
out.
Leveled out, and the sidewalk going down that alleyway, that's the city sidewalk. The total cost of this project is at $75,000 that we looked at last meeting, that had the railing up, had the steps coming down.
And I missed that, so I wasn't here last
Oh,
meeting, so
yeah,
that's why I was asking.
That's what we tabled last time, and then the ADA ramp at the end of that building.
So there's a $65,000 difference?
Yes.
Who's gonna pay that?
I think eventually, people sitting at this table are gonna have to approve that if that's something that we desire.
This 10,000 levels that whole length of sidewalk?
It gets his construction project.
No?
This 10,000 levels the area in front of his building and puts the sidewalk down the side of that building.
Okay.
It impacts one property owner.
One property owner, that's correct.
This is just for the Tabor property?
That's what this is for.
You've got an immediate issue with that property in that his plans are effectively on hold for putting retail in the bottom of that space because of the way it is configured currently. It doesn't accommodate doors that he would like to put in the front of the building. And it's a unique situation because everything that's surrounding his building that is problematic is public infrastructure. So initially, he approached the city asking for improvements to public infrastructure that would allow him to make his redevelopment project. Since then, collectively, all of the redevelopment groups on Lafayette Street have come and requested an overhaul to the west side of Lafayette Street. So what this is acknowledging is that you've got a bigger project, but the most imminent need, you've got a developer doing a significant redevelopment project that is in a holding pattern until the board makes a decision on this. And on the $10,000, this would still have to go through a bidding process. So you'll approve the final cost for the project at that time. Alderman Little.
Earlier, Alderman Walker and I walked around and looked at that, and am I correct that it's an ADA issue where that ramp is in front of that business?
I don't think there's any question that currently, what is currently in front of that property and others along that would not meet ADA compliance because of excessive cross slope. Is that fair? Edward, would you agree with that? So yeah, there is clearly in public infrastructure that doesn't meet ADA access currently.
So this is going to be one step, I think, in my mind. I think some others that on the board would like to move forward with addressing that whole block at some point as we go. And this would be just the first phase of a couple more phases to address those issues.
And the city engineer will be working on full design and full cost estimate for Lafayette Street. $75,000 is more of a ballpark figure. We don't know what even the cost estimate is until the city engineers had a little time to design.
And that intersection will fall into that improvement. So.
That's correct. The problem you've got is you've got ADA access on the north end of Lafayette, but you don't have ADA access on the south end of Lafayette. So it really acts as an ADA trap because you get going down one end and then you get to the end and there's no way off.
There's a way off, it's just a long fall.
I just like to add that I think we're having to take a half step right here if this is approved, but there's no question that we have significant issues that need to be addressed on Lafayette Street and many other streets in our downtown core where we are seeing a growing and thriving local economy continue to move and change. The context is changing. We have to seriously address accessibility throughout our downtown core. We're at a very strong point in our city's history, I believe, with the oncoming, and as we see this happening on Lafayette and other places, that Starkville is a growing destination for new business and new retail. And if we want to really put our best foot forward, these are the steps that we have to make. And I see this as a very small step. The intersection of Lampkin and Lafayette is absolutely critical. Addressing the stop sign so you can see. I know we're currently working on some conceptual plans that are looking to make significant improvements that are similar to improvements that we've made in town already and other places around the country that, without question, are going to make it both safer for pedestrians and people in vehicles. So that's in the planning stages, and hopefully we can get that planned and find a way to get it paid for sooner rather than later.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Maynard's motion, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. The next matter that you have before you is discussion and consideration of a budget modification to extend a contract ending date to December 31st, 2015, and realign the budget to reflect construction change directives. You will remember approximately 6 weeks to 2 months ago, you approved a change order on the parking garage construction project. This is the back end of that process where all of that has to be recognized with the Mississippi Development Authority and how that affects the project going forward. It's not changing what you've already done, but you have to approve the modification of the paperwork for MDA records. Is Ms. Benson here? Is that correct, Ms. Benson?
That is.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to approve of a budget modification to extend a contract ending date to December 31st, 2015, and realign the budget to reflect the construction change directive adjustment of budget line items as presented. Alderman Vaughn, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Vaughn, do you wish to speak on the merit? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is discussion and consideration of establishing set hours for trick-or-treating. Alderman Little?
Sure. It's pretty straightforward. With the success that Mississippi State football program's been enjoying the last several weeks, we've seen the increase in traffic coming into town. That should be no less significant on the night of Halloween this year, being the night before our Arkansas showdown. With that in mind and an increase of foot traffic, several other towns around the state have established hours, and I think it's a safety issue, and if we can get it out on our social media, our new intern can get that out to the public, and the newspaper outlets can let the public know that from 5:30 to 8 we can observe this, and the responsible parents that we have here in town can see that their kids are trick-or-treating during those hours, and the residents can turn their lights out in good conscience, their porch lights out in good conscience at 8 o'clock, let them know that it is over. And if we save one child or one adult from getting hit, I think that would be a good thing.
Do you have a motion?
I do. Move approval of establishing set hours for trick-or-treating, 5:30 to 8 p.m. on October 31st, 2014.
Alderman Little has made a motion to establish set hours for trick-or-treating of 5:30 to 8 p.m. on October 31st, 2014. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Discussion.
Mayor.
Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to concur with the gentleman from 3. This is a very vital governmental measure that promotes the health, safety, and welfare of our city. And I notice in the packet that we see where the city of Hattiesburg and Ocean Spring are both doing this, and I will likewise would want to encourage the media, of course, they know what they want to print, but want to respectfully encourage them to please highlight this, because a lot of our citizens do not have a website, and this is a matter I certainly would like to see on the front page so that the citizens can see this. We expect a capacity crowd in our city on this particular date, and this is a very good measure, and I fully support this. And gentlemen, thank you for bringing this forward.
Any further discussion? Alderman Carver.
I was gonna say, the enforceability of it and things like that. I had questions with it originally, but then it's one of the few things I've asked for counsel from different people, and everybody I talked to said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. And anybody, it's for little kids. If somebody's taking them out, they need, that's a pretty good significant time. And then I didn't even think about it being the home football game, but the traffic and everything like that. So this is a good idea.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion clearly passes. Next matter you have before you is discussion and consideration of temporary policy changes related to expediting storm recovery.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
As Mr. Adams and Ms. Gandy make their way forward, I'm going to take the opportunity to brag for a moment on our staff, because I was very, very proud of you in the aftermath of last week's storm event. Of course, it involved efforts by our first responders, our utilities, and sanitation and environmental services. They were swift to respond the night of the storm event. And in the case of sanitation and environmental services, they have continued to respond for the week that followed. I know Mr. Adams will have some comments on just how pleased he is with their response. But I can tell you, having been in communication with our department heads in all of these functions and having observed all of them, we have much to be proud of because I think your response was exemplary. Now, Alderman Nguyen, do you wish to make comments before I turn the floor over?
No, I'll let them speak first and then
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I dive in, I do want to say to Chief, man, I like the dress blues tonight. Thank you for, but also, and Vice Mayor, thank you for loading this item to the agenda and giving us an opportunity to make a report on this.
Yes, sir.
And to all the board members who have complimented our staff tonight, thank you for your kind words. Echoing what the mayor said, I could not be happier with the way that our staff has responded to this emergency, and I hope that you will even agree more so after we sort of give you a report of the last few days, and then follow that with a request for our plan for going forward and closing out this emergency. Of course, we had a storm Monday night. At the conclusion of the storm, we found ourselves in a situation where roughly 70% of our residents were without power. We had roads that were impassable throughout the city, and that first night was a tough one, I think. But the best call that I got was from Mr. Kemp when he told me that he called me about 5:30 and said he had called everybody. At 6:15, he told me everybody made it to work, and so that was a great call. We had 100% of our employees that we called in show up that night. Our electric crews worked until about 2 a.m. that morning, and we were able to restore power to about 80% of our residents by the close of business on Tuesday. So roughly 24 hours from the time that the event occurred, all of our roads were passable. 98% of our ratepayers had their power restored. So it speaks to a monumental effort on the part of both of our sanitation, street, and electric employees just to get us to a place where we could assess the real nature of the damage we were facing and what our cleanup efforts looked like after that. Tuesday morning, the mayor and I met with Ms. Gandy and her lead foreman / superintendent, Calvin Ware. We assessed a going forward plan at that point, and found our first piece of work for our new intern, which was taking our debris removal procedures that Ms. Gandy provided to me by way of a bullet pointed list, reducing those to a public service announcement, which we distributed on the website Tuesday afternoon, and sent to the paper at that same time, and I believe it ran in the paper on Thursday morning. It's important to note at this point that our sanitation staff has used every available resource that they've had at their disposal, and they've done so 6 days a week. And I can speak to that personally from both daily conversations with Ms. Gandy, but also to the point that Alderman Vaughn made earlier, through making sure that I was sort of surveying our presence in the ward, but also in daily visits down to the barn to visit with both, mostly with the street folks. We were trying to assess what additional information we could provide. We provided what support we could through the week, like I say, with the one truck that we have, a single knuckle boom. That crew worked straight through the weekend to do all that we could. After the weekend, in a conversation with Ms. Gandy, it was clear that our staff had assessed that the issue that we were dealing with was not so much getting rubbish out. It was that the conforming and non-conforming rubbish that we were dealing with were commingled to the point that we could not clear the rubbish with our existing with our existing equipment. And when I say conforming and non-conforming for the purpose of the public, of course what we're talking about is conforming would be something that's allowable for us to collect within our ordinance. Non-conforming would be something that is not allowable within our ordinance. The issue with the non-conforming piece primarily is the size. Our knuckle boom can handle up a log with up to an 8-inch diameter. Anything of a diameter greater than that, we just don't have the equipment to handle. And it would only be in a storm situation like this that our team would be called on to deal with something of that size. So our issue was, you've got, if in the instance where a tree, particularly a mature tree, has fallen, you have someone who's come and cut that tree up and taken everything to the curb, the trunk, the stump, and all the limbs and branches, and they're intermingled to the point, or commingled to the point that we can't get to the pieces that our ordinance requires us to remove. So our first request will be our plan for dealing with that and how we'll get all of that off the curb. But just to come back to sort of the plan where we are, we had a meeting Monday or yesterday with the department heads in sanitation and environmental services, street, electric, and water and sewer. We developed a plan there that we still believe is our best way forward at this point, particularly understanding the directives that have come from this board on similar matters for us to utilize our own labor wherever possible and to avoid outsourcing of projects like this. The street and electric departments are pledging 1 dump truck and driver each. Water and sewer is going to pledge 2 dump trucks and 2 drivers. Sanitation and environmental services believes that the labor force that we have within landscape division can be dedicated to this effort, and we're going to seek approval to rent equipment to load. And what this will do for us, this will get us a second crew in the streets working on these problem areas, and and really to deal with this in a timely fashion. That's really all. That's really the only way that we see forward at this point with our existing labor. So our first, and what that will do is that will give us the ability to clear all of the street. And so our first request is one that we're able to go outside of our ordinance and pick up everything, both so that we can get all of this commingled debris, larger and small, out of the street. It should be noted at this point that that it is likely that some of the stumps and things even will be too big. Electric has agreed that once we've gotten everything that we can using this method, they will come behind with their large equipment to clear the remainder of these stumps and logs that even that cannot pick up, and so we'll handle those that way utilizing the same dump trucks. So we feel that is a great plan for clearing the debris that is at the curb right now. We also know that there are some residents in the community that have hired contractors that are traveling by their own means to try to try to get their debris cleared into the landfill. We appreciate that. They're trying to help us. There are churches that are taking on some of this effort as well. Our second request is a 1-month waiver of the residential tipping fee at the landfill to assist and to make it easier for community groups and homeowners that are trying to help us clear this debris, get it to the landfill without having to pay those fees. The third is to Alderman Bond's comments earlier. We do have an ordinance in play that relates to code enforcement and rubbish. We're asking for a 1-month waiver of citations being issued for debris while we clean up. And when I say 1 month, 1 month from the date of the storm, because there were people that took stuff out last week that received tickets. We would look at the date on those tickets and obviously exempt those so that no one was treated, I guess, inconsistently through this process. I'll close by saying before I take any questions, I am extremely proud of our staff. I know that you all have received a wealth of calls from concerned constituents, and I appreciate the need for us to work quickly to get the streets cleared. Not to make an excuse, but just to say that this damage was in an amount that I guess was severe, to the extent that we've not seen here in a long time. But our staff has worked diligently to restore order as quickly as possible. I would be remiss also without thanking police, because again, that first Monday night when 70% of the city was dark, police were on duty. We didn't have any power here in this building. They fired up their generator for the first time, and since I don't know when, Chief, we had dispatchers filling out orders with pencil and paper, but they rose to the occasion and they delivered. Our fire, there are stories I could tell about fire all of our departments. I'm very proud of our staff. So thank you all. Those are our 3 requests. Just to sum up one more time that a 1-month waiver of residential tipping fees starting with the date of the storm, a 1-month period of no citations for debris while we clean this up, and then third, we're asking for permission to go outside of the ordinance and pick up everything that is at the curb right now.
Discussion, questions or comments? Alderman Little.
As bad as it was, it could have been a whole lot worse for this area, but my question is, do we qualify? Did this trigger any kind of federal or state assistance, or are we on our own?
No, we had that call the day after, and $3.2 million worth of damage is the trigger, and everyone that assessed it felt certain that we weren't close to that threshold.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Alderman Nguyen.
Mr. CAO, I guess I'm a little bit concerned regarding this courtesy notice that we have for our city. Alderman Vaughn has said that it's a standard procedure. Is this standard procedure that after a storm that this would be placed on the residents' doors?
Alderman, I don't guess I can speak to that.
Let me read something. Mayor, maybe you can help me out with this. It says, this is a courtesy notice from the City of Starkville Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. Any further violations of these regulations will result in a fine and or summons to appear for a hearing to face charges for violating city ordinances. And I'm going to read 3 of the items that are specifically checked on here. It says wood cuttings placed at curbside may be no more than 8 inches in diameter, and rigid materials shall be no more than 10 feet in length. Solid waste resulting from property clearance, stumps, logs, and tree stumps not considered to be trimming shall not be permitted to be placed on the street or the curb or the sidewalk, and the responsibility for removal is at that of the property owner. The other one is solid waste resulting from construction, demolition, or renovation, including do-it-yourself projects, is not household rubbish, and it is the responsibility of the property owner, contractor, and or tenant to remove the same. None of this addresses storm. This is not, any of this is related to storm, so I guess that's my concern. And I think about a property that's located over there on Louisville Street. It's an apartment complex over there in Ward 7 that was completely demolished the other day. I would not want the resident or the property owner to receive such. So I think in the future, we've got to look at this and review this and make some modifications so that it will specifically address storm.
Thank you,
Alderman Carver.
You know, and Calvin's got a tough job by giving those out because at that point, he may be looking like the bad guy when all he's doing is stating the ordinance. And, you know, maybe with social media and things like that out there, and this is maybe just, if nothing else, an opportunity to say, you know, we just don't have the capabilities to pick up 2,000-pound trunks. I mean, I think Calvin, I've talked to Calvin several times, I'm telling you again, I think he's one of the best employees we've got as a city.
Absolutely.
But he's in between a rock and a hard place having to do that, but he's trying to, you know, there's really no other way, and maybe, you know, that's what the ordinance is right now, and if we need to address it, that's fine, but everything you said went above and beyond what I thought y'all were gonna do, so again, congratulations, or thank you, or more, I guess more thank you for doing that and allowing the residents to take things out there, because I know, and the only thing I got at the time, you know, you're saying it's 30 days for the residential fee to be waived, but you know, you're already 8 days into it now, so I don't know if maybe 45, I'll let the board discuss, but.
Sure. No, we would be open to any time that, of course, the board wanted to set its policy. We were just making a recommendation on the staff side, but of course, we're here for you, so thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Make a motion that we adopt, I won't repeat the motions that you requested earlier, to be in effect from 30 days from tomorrow. Moving forward. He kindly reduced those in writing.
Alderman Maynard has made a motion to adopt the recommendations related to storm cleanup as presented and reduced to writing by staff. Since it has been reduced to writing and the clerk has a copy of the writing without objection, I will not reread the recommendations. Is there any objection? Seeing none, do I hear a second to Alderman Maynard's motion?
Second. The only addition to that, Mayor, was to extend 30 days from tomorrow.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So that's accept the recommendations, extending the 30-day period for all recommendations or for waiver of the tipping fees.
Can we also cover last week, because we did have a number of residents who came in last week.
Absolutely.
You want to just extend it to 40 days from the date of the storm?
That'd be fine, yes.
Thank you.
For all
Thank you.
recommendations?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the motion from Alderman Maynard is to accept the recommendations as written, but changing all references to 30-day periods from the date of the storm to 40-day periods from the date of the storm. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes.
And without objection, I won't reread. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the do you wish to speak?
And that does invalidate all those tickets that.
It does, yes. Yes, all.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter that you have before you is a request for approval not to assign or amend the current FBO lease at Bryanfield Airport. Discussion.
May I be recognized, Mr. Mayor?
You may.
I move approval not to assign or amend the current FBO lease at Bryanfield Airport in response to Mickey Ratliff's letter dated August 4th, 2014, addressed to and received by Andy Fultz on August 5th, 2014.
Motion has been made by Alderman Nguyen to approve not assigning or amending the current lease at Bryan Airfield Airport in response to Mickey Ratliff's letter dated August 4th, 2014, addressed to and received by Andy Fultz on August 5th, 2014. Alderman Nguyen, is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Nguyen, you wish to speak on the matter?
I do. The airport board motion was made to recommend that the Board of Aldermen not assign or amend the current FBO lease at Bryanfield Airport in response to Mickey Ratliff's letter dated August 4th, 2014, addressed to and received by Andy Fultz on August 5th, 2014, and it was unanimously approved. I recommend that we take their recommendation.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Next matter you have before you is request for authorization for Starkville Electric to execute mutual aid agreements with Louisville and Tupelo and Oklahoma. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Turner, I think you've already looked at the contract and meet your approval.
It does.
Okay, just to make sure. And Mr. Mayor, I move approval since city attorney's already looked at it.
Motion has been made by Alderman Perkins to approve of the authorization for Starkville Electric to execute mutual aid agreements with Louisville Utilities, City of Tupelo Water and Light, and City of Oklahoma Electric Department for work performed after the storm on October 13, 2014, as presented. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Perkins, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Alderman Carver.
Can I ask Mr. Kemp a question? 2 years ago, you and I went and we toured the power line that goes from us to Severstar, and I had a couple people that asked, and excuse my ignorance on the subject, but you said one time that if our power went out, that maybe we could flip a switch. I know that's simple terminology, and feed off of the steel mill. Did we use that this time, or was that?
That particular circuit's wrong good. So our primary circuit and our northeast substation both stay energized. What we lost was our southwest substation and our northwest substation.
So
our feed from the gas stayed solid, so we were good in that area. It was affecting us on the west side.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is, motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to approve of Terry Kemp traveling to Murfreesboro, Tennessee for TVPPA rates and contract committee meeting and the annual meeting of the Seven States Power Corporation on October 29th through 30th as presented. Alderman Vaughn, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Vaughn, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is request for approval of the City of Starkville claims docket. Motion's been made by Alderman Little to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments, including the Starkville Electric Department as of October 17, 2014, for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2015, as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
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 By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. Next matter on the agenda is a request for approval of the municipal compliance questionnaire. The motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve the municipal compliance questionnaire in accordance with the requirements of section 21-35-31 of the Mississippi Code annotated in 1972 as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda.
Mayor, may we take a break? Just give us 5 minutes or.
Okay, I was hoping to get to executive session, but if y'all want to take it now.
I move to go and break for 5 minutes.
All right, but without objection. Without objection, we'll take a brief recess.
It's real easy sometimes.
Meeting will now come back to order. The next matter on your agenda is scheduled to be a report from Chief Mann, but we have Training Officer Yarborough here to give the report on the Pink Hills tour. Proceed.
Mayor and Board of Aldermen, citizens, thank you. First of all, I'd like to, Chief wanted me to send his apologies for not being here. He didn't feel too good this afternoon, so kind of standing for him. First of all, this is the 6th year for our Pink Hills event. 6th year that they'll be coming through the city of Starkville. We got chosen 6 years ago to do this. It's been a success ever since. To date, we've gained about $15,000 that we donated to the Breast Self Imaging Center. That money is used for mammograms and ultrasounds for women who can't afford them. Also, we have some of the money is used to give back to the community, give back to people who's going through cancer right now, going through treatments. This year we're doing what we call a community day. It starts at we start with a 5K at 8:30 on October 25th, which is this Saturday. At the conclusion of that, we have a community day which starts at 10 o'clock. That community day consists of activities for the kids, games, door prizes, things of that nature. The highlight of that day will be around 12 o'clock. We have a pink fire truck coming in from the city of Pontotoc, which will be making its ride through the city of Pontotoc to the city of Starkville. At the end of that conclusion that day, anybody who suffered council, had any dealings with council, they have an opportunity to sign the truck. It'll be special presentation. There'll be special guests there from the Pink Hills tour. And we just hope everybody will come out and bring the kids out. Everybody come out and join us for that day. Any questions?
And I'll just make a comment before opening the floor. It's been fun to watch this event grow and grow each year, and I know you put a lot into it, and I know all of our firefighters put a lot into it, but you've done an excellent job building this into something that raises awareness for a worthy cause and rallies our community and support. It's a wonderful event. Questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Vaughn.
I attended last year. It was great. A lot of people got a chance to sign the truck last year, and since then, there's a lot of more cancellation is involved. This the 5K run starts at 8:30.
Yes, sir.
It's free.
It's $25. We make it simple for you.
And you say the community day is at 11 o'clock.
It starts at 10. Yes, sir.
It starts at 10. Okay, and all this is going to end up at Fire Station 1. All this is going on at Fire Station 1.
Right. This is the last round, so from 10 to about 2, right in time. Right before the football game starts.
Okay.
Shut it down.
Okay.
Further questions or comments
I'll be there.
from the members of the board?
I've got to say this. I know the two members of the board, Alderman Vaughn and Alderman Little, have pink neckties. I hope that all the other guys on the board will get them some pink neckties this month and let me see them in them.
That'd be nice.
If you see any of them, you tell them, okay?
Definitely will. All the firefighters be wearing pink shirts that day. So.
I've got a couple of options. Would you prefer a pink bow tie or a long tie?
Yeah, anything pink.
All right, I've got a pink and white polka dot bow tie.
Yeah,
I
y'all
may
can do
pull
the
that
pink.
one out.
Coach Mullins has been doing it. And guys of the SEC football team. See, Alderman Walker is nodding his head. I know what I'm talking about.
Further questions or comments for Mr. Yarborough? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Yarborough.
Charles, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda is a request for approval of the Mississippi Partnership Counseling to Career Youth Program Work Experience and Summer Work Experience Worksite Agreement and authorization to participate in this program. This is something that Mr. Boyd has worked really hard on, along with the city attorney and others, and staff at Golden Triangle Planning and Development District. And I am really, really excited about it. Mr. Boyd, do you want to brief the board?
I'll be glad to, and credit goes to Stephanie Halbert and Emma Gandy for their work on this program. They've helped to pull this together. This is a program that's part of the Workforce Investment Act. EMCC is the program provider, and we're being asked to be a worksite employer. The program is designed to provide WIA eligible youth with basic work skills in order that the youth will be better able to compete for available jobs in the local labor market. The program will enhance the basic educational skills of youth, encourage school completion or enrollment in supplementary or alternative school programs, and provide eligible youth with work ethic training and exposure to the world of work, and also enhance the citizenship of youth. EMCC is currently working with this program in several local areas, including the cities of West Point and Columbus, and they've approached us about expanding the program in Oktibbeha County and placing participants with the city of Starkville. Under this program, the participants would receive classroom training provided by EMCC and would be placed in a work setting with the city for 270 hours per participant. The participant would be paid by EMCC. There's no cost to the city for this program at all. We'll be looking at placing youth in meaningful work opportunities, including both office settings and labor-type positions. They would not displace or substitute for any regular city employee. The exact positions and departments will be determined once we identify the program participants. We have with us tonight Shakarla Petty and Yolanda Haddocks from EMCC, and they can we'll be glad to answer any questions that the board might have if you would like to bring those forward.
At this time, do we have any Alderman Vaughn?
God bless y'all. Thank y'all for coming. How many employees, how many students will this will be enrolled in here?
At this time, what we've done is, we stated that we can have 5 students placed here. And they can work in the capacity of clerical or, with any of the street departments, with, water, anything, any other capacity.
At what age? What's
18 to 21.
18 to 21.
Any further questions or comments? Discussion.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to approve the Mississippi Partnership Counseling to Career Youth Program Work Experience and Summer Work Experience Worksite Agreement and authorization to participate in the program as presented. Alderman Vaughn, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Vaughn, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes.
Thank you, lady. Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
The next matter before you is a request for approval to add forfeited vehicles to the police department fixed asset list.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve of adding forfeited vehicles to the police department fixed asset list and authorization to utilize the 2006 Jeep Commander for departmental purposes and to list the 1998 Ford Expedition on govdeals.com or public auction to be awarded to the highest or best bidder as presented. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Walker, you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Alderman Carver.
I was gonna ask, but the older vehicles is just to a point and needs to be better off on you to auction it? Does it have no use, the older Expedition?
No, sir. No,
Not
sir.
worth?
When you look at maintenance costs, it's not worth it.
Just wondering. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Next matter before you is request for approval of the lowest quote for 55, 5 2-yard, 15 4-yard, 20 6-yard, and 15 8-yard container dumpsters.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to approve of the lowest quote for 55 container dumpsters from Waste Quip in the amount of $47,110 and to remove from inventory and declare 40 containers as surplus property as presented. Alderman Vaughn, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Vaughn, you wish to speak on the
No,
matter?
sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion?
What do we do with the surplus?
We
Scrap?
add them to our scrap pile and then we bid off the scrap material.
Alderman Walker.
That was gonna be my question as well. And so these are, some of these are fairly, the large containers, is that?
They are. And they're various in size, you know, from the 4, the 2, the 4, they're various size.
And the reason they're not usable is just from beat
Wear-
up and tops not working correctly and that sort of
Right.
thing?
Wear and tear. We were able to, those that can't, where the tops can be replaced, we replaced those. We tried to do a little cosmetic by painting some of them, but I find out that the staff does more cleaning up around these containers because they have holes in them, so when the truck picks them up, it's a lot of things being spilled out. So
Holes in the bottom and sides maybe?
Right. It looks good, but some of them have holes in the bottom, and we're
Yep.
wasting more than we're picking up, so.
One thing before we take all these to the junk pile that I would just like for us to consider, there may be a use for them somewhere, is several years ago, a great project, public kind of a service project. They were using these same kind of containers for gardens in New York and very urban areas to be able to do that. So we may have some opportunities to repurpose those for some type of community good, whether that's in some of the parks, paint them different colors and do something with them, but the ones that maybe aren't as far gone as others. So I wouldn't mind coming and seeing what this inventory that we're going to pull off and see what they are. We might have a use for them somewhere.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a request for approval of the lowest quote from Starkville Sheet. That motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve the lowest quote from Starkville Sheet Metal in the amount of $12,475 to repair the roof of the Public Works building which houses Sanitation and Environmental Services Department, Street Department, and Auto Maintenance Department as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Walker. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Alderman Vaughn.
Mr. Mayor, I got one question. It says this is a house by the Sanitation Department, Environmental Service, Street Department. Who is the Sanitation Department going to pay this whole fee by themselves, or is this going to be split between the three?
Mr. Adams, would you like to speak to that?
At present, Water and Sewer has some willingness to cover part of the cost of the roof, but this is an expense that we were looking to come from the Sanitation and Environmental Services budget. And from the appearance of monies, basically Ms. Gandy's to be complimented for this, but her budget seems to have improved to the point that this can be sustained. This particularly with some of the improvements to the recycling program that we'll be proposing in the near future should make this an easy expense for her budget to sustain.
Do she house, is the other employees from these departments, are they housed there daily?
Sir?
Are they housed there daily? Are they there daily?
I mean, yes, sir, this is the barn, so all the departments are there, but, I can tell you specifically, there is no room in the street budget to cover it, particularly with the scope of repairs at the sportplex, and water will be participating. And so we're looking at those two departments.
So those two departments, okay.
Yes.
As long as she gets some help with it, since everybody used it. I don't think that would be fair for her to pay for this by herself and then everybody using it.
Oh, yes, sir, I agree.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. That exhausts the open session portion of the agenda. A motion to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for executive session is in order. So moved. Motion has been made by Alderman Little to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. I'll now ask the public to exit the room so the board can begin closed session deliberation.